Hey guys.
What's up?
Girls.
Did you guys hire Matt Patricia?
Yeah, I know there was a report out that was said, and we're trending in that direction. It's nothing's final yet, and we're trending in that direction, and so we'll see how that progresses. But it's trending in that direction. Yes.
The report is on your website.
Yeah, it's trending in that direction.
Do you have to talk to Slay about
Yeah,
that?
of course. Yeah, of course. You go through, like you do with anything, you go through and you talk to guys and make sure everybody's comfortable with it. I had conversations with Slay. Obviously, I had conversations with Coach Patricia, and I know that that it will be a good working relationship for us when that happens.
What can Matt Patricia offer to this team once it does happen?
Yeah, obviously his resume speaks for itself.
Press conference.
His resume speaks for itself. It gives you a great a mind in there that's done it at the highest level, and so it gives you great ability to bounce ideas off of with the defensive staff, and then also gives me another former head coach that I can bounce ideas off of as well. With things which I think would be very helpful.
Howie, how did the contract with Jalen come together so quickly?
There you go. It's your turn.
We're turning. Yeah, I think you got to give tremendous credit to Jalen, Nicole Lynn, the people internally, Jake Rosenberg, Bryce Johnson, really just the way that everyone kind of made an effort to do this in a way that was really win-win. I think it's a heck of a deal for Jalen. I think it's a heck of a deal for the Eagles, and I think those are really the best kind of deals. And really, when I think about Jalen coming here, there's so many people deserve a lot of credit for where we are right now. It starts with Jalen and his work ethic and his determination. From the first day we drafted him, he had a vision of what kind of player he's going to be, and then just everyone has been around him, who's rallied around him, and it's a great story. We're certainly not at the end of the story. I think we're really at the beginning of the story, but just really excited about doing this together with him and having him a part of this team and having that done in a way that really worked out well for both sides.
Nick, did you ever get involved in the process?
In the negotiations of the contract, no.
What was your reaction? What was your involvement in terms of?
Looked up the giggles.
They never said if you wanted this guy or not.
Jalen?
Yeah,
I was. Obviously, I wanted him.
And Jeffy actually wanted to be here. He wanted to be here too.
So no, that's not my job.
What was your reaction?
I was juiced. I was excited. Yeah. Obviously, to Jalen and I have a great relationship, and as a coach to player and player to coach, and I really value those relationships that we have, and obviously his play has spoken for itself. So you're getting a guy that you like. One of my favorite things, Jeff, is and I felt like when I left Indy, I missed out on this. There was a lot of guys that signed contracts in Indy after I left. I'm like, man, I always really like that part of it, where guys get rewarded for what they've done, and I'm able to be there with them and be happy for them and still be able to coach them. And so that's kind of how I felt. Like, yeah, I guess we've signed a couple guys since I've to long-term deals since I've been here, but
four last year.
That was special.
The season.
It was special. Yeah.
The other thing about it too is I think and this probably goes without saying, but the fact that Jeffrey was willing to do this and commit to it and give us the support to do it and the green light to do it, a year early, this kind of contract and the trust that he had, not only in us, but how excited he was to do it with Jalen. And, because that's hard to do. You're doing it early. You're doing it a year early. You obviously have the tag. You have all these things at your disposal. And him recognizing, that this was the best thing to do for this team and this franchise. So, just him doing that and him trusting us to do a deal that made sense on both sides, he deserves a tremendous amount of credit.
Midterm planning, long-term planning, to know that you have the quarterback, in terms of both the draft and the cap, to know you have the quarterback under contract.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the deal, that by doing it at the time we did, and by being able to work together to do things that were important to them and important to us. And for us, it's about flexibility around him. You know, this is the ultimate team game, and he needs to have talented people around him. And Jalen recognized that, Nicole recognized that, and so to be able to do this in a way that also gives us an opportunity to get good players. And then, you know, we had kind of planned for this. We had picks. We went into free agency kind of planning for this, getting comp picks. You know, we'll get 4 comp picks next year. And so, you know, already, I mean, it's kind of unusual, you know, certainly since I'm here, I don't remember, you know, being in a situation where we have 12 picks before this year's draft for next year's draft. We'll probably have 2 after this draft, but, I think a little joke. Thank you. One laugh. Courtesy laugh. I didn't even get the courtesy laugh from you. But I think, you know, for us, obviously, we get a chance to plan, and we get a chance to work around it and build around him and some of the guys that we have on long-term contracts, and that's exciting. But we got to continue to do the right thing. I think we've had tremendous meetings leading up to this draft. I think we've got a really good process in place. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but I'm excited about the possibilities for a week from today and certainly beyond.
Howie, a draft question. There's a narrative that, there's a narrative that you guys will never take a running back or a linebacker in the first round. Obviously, it's been a long time since the franchise has done that. What's your philosophy about running backs in the first round and linebackers, and what would it take for you to take one?
I think the most important thing when you're picking in the first round, certainly when you're picking 10, is that you get a unique player. And I think that there's so few unique players in any draft that if you start picking by position and not based on the quality of the talent, then you really you get a chance. So if you pick by position and you pick a player who's not any good, then it's not a good pick anyway. And so I think the most important thing for us here is that we utilize this opportunity to get a unique player for our team. You know, certainly not planning to be picking at this point in the near future. That doesn't mean, you know, obviously things happen, but we're not planning for that. And so we understand how important it is to get this right. And how do you get it right is you make sure you get a unique player. And so I think that if you start saying, hey, we can only get a unique player, but it's got to be this position, you really narrow your options right there. And so just trying to be as open-minded as possible about what that looks like, and making sure that whoever we pick is somebody that we think can really impact the game.
Howie, being able to keep the cap numbers as low as they are for Jalen, who gets credit, or deserves credit for that, and is part of it ownership being willing to kind of give cash up front?
Well, there's no doubt. It all starts with Jeffrey and his commitment to provide us every resource possible on and off the field to make this a championship caliber football team. So it starts with him, and then we got tremendous people inside this building who have great ideas, and led in that department by Jake and Bryce. And I think sometimes they come to me and they got to slow it down and talk to me like, I'm in 3rd grade, and explain it to me so I can get on the phone and explain it to somebody else. And, understanding the ramifications of what we're doing. We're not pulling the wool over the eyes of anyone, any players, or, Jeffrey. When we explain what we're doing here, we have a plan that doesn't just last for this year or next year. We're not trying to do anything where 5 or 6 years from now the Philadelphia Eagles won't be able to compete. I think that we understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and you got to have a willingness with the players to also want to do things that's right for the team. And Jalen and Nicole deserve a lot of credit as well.
What's the verdict on in terms of research you guys done on Jalen Carter, and do you feel comfortable drafting him at number 10?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit about the people in this building, and there's no one we rely more on than Dom DeSandro, and we rely on him for things like this. And at the end of the day, he does a tremendous job of getting us all the information and putting us in a position to make decisions. And I think every decision is unique to the player and the situation. And so we'll have every piece of information at our disposal and be ready to make a decision on anyone who has a situation that's maybe a little bit outside the norm.
You've always been really.
To just follow up on Jeff's question, some general managers have publicly said that they feel better regarding the specific prospect, Jalen Carter, after an in-person visit. Would you say that's kind of accurate, or anything that you might be able to share on that?
Yeah, I'd say that every situation is unique to that situation, and I think it's important that as an overall process that we don't really get into each and everyone's situation. I think that's where I'm most comfortable, as opposed to just talking about each and every guy. And again, I think that we will do everything to make sure that we know everything we possibly can about every one of these players, and to be in a position that if the opportunity arises, that we're in a position to make a decision that we feel really good about.
You've always been really active when it comes to trades, like during the draft and everything. Because you don't have like a mid-round, 4th, 5th, or 6th round pick, I mean, does that make it more likely, less likely, plus, the extra picks you have next year and all that?
Yeah, I think that it's dependent on the value of the pick that we have. And by that, I mean that if, for instance, last year, when we were picking in the 3rd round, I don't know that we've had as many trade offers as we did on any pick as we did in that 3rd round pick. And I'm not saying that was for Nakobe or what it was, but we just felt like we didn't want to move from that pick because of Nakobe. And last year we had traded our 4th and 2/5 to move up for Jordan. So I think the most important thing for us is not necessarily to win the draft in terms of how many picks we can possibly get and how many players that we can possibly pick, but getting the right players. And so for us, there are going to be times where we're sitting there and our board's going to have a big drop off, and we'll have a trade offer to move back, and we'll say we think the value of this pick is better than getting some of these mid picks. And we've talked a lot in this room about when you're picking and how the odds naturally cut off at a certain point in each round. And you have a better chance of hitting on guys. I think the second part of what makes it really important that we can prepare for, because you don't know what's going to happen in the course of a draft, is we got to be prepared for undrafted free agency. Really proud of the job our scouts, our coaches, our football administration people did last year after the draft, and adding. We had four guys make our team after the draft, and those are extra picks. When you look at the league where a majority of the players come from after the first couple of rounds, it's undrafted free agency. And so I think we really got to have a good process in place for that. I think we do have a good process in conjunction with Coach and his coaches. And so I think that's something we can prepare for and make sure that if we come out of this with 6 picks, that we're also coming out with a bunch of players after the draft that we think can contribute to this football team.
You mentioned the 12 picks we have next year. It feels like you guys don't devalue future picks as much as other teams around the league. So how do you kind of balance using future picks to move up or do whatever to add to your draft capital the current year versus making sure you get the appropriate value of those future picks?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is the value of the player that you're talking about trading for with the future pick. So that by that I mean that if we were to be in the 3rd round and we had a 1st round grade on a guy, and we came to the conclusion that we would trade it next year too, it would be based on the fact of the grade of the player and the caliber of the player. And, again, not saying that we're going to do that, but I think it's more about every unique situation that you go into and that you look at. There won't be a situation where we'll be sitting there on day 3 if we kind of stand pat and we just say, hey, we got to get a pick this year, so let's go trade our 4 for a 5. It will be based on the value of the board and the value of the positions and the players that are available to us, if that makes sense.
Sorry, you had made
I will
some
have to take lots of
significant-
walks, though. Lots of walks.
Made some significant changes in the personnel department because you had to. This is your, obviously, post-Andy, the first draft, Andy Weidel. Does your process change at all when you bring in new people? Do you try to keep everything?
Process doesn't change. The process it hasn't been perfect, but we continue to try to make the process better. I think when you bring in new people and you talk about the process, you ask what they can add to it from places they've been that they thought was good and that would add to it. So it's been really fun for me. I always like being around. I love having the people who've been here for a long time. I love having continuity, but I also get excited about having new people around with new ideas and new ways of looking at things. It challenges me. It makes me better. So it's been that way here throughout the process. People here who are in new roles, people who we brought in, and these guys are really, really talented people who are really adding to us and to our draft process, to our free agent process. And so I'm excited for the opportunity for them, and I think it goes both ways. Some of the things that we're doing may be different than the things that they've been used to, and hopefully one day they'll take that with them when they get their jobs and their opportunities, because I do think they're really talented people.
I saw make the addition of, you promoted Kevin Patullo to associate head coach. First off, what warranted the promotion? What's the difference between assistant head coach and associate head coach? And how has his role changed in terms of Brian Johnson being the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, Kevin's role will stay very similar. I just wanted to recognize Kevin for all the things that he does to help me, with day-to-day operations as a head coach. He's done a lot. Obviously Jamal does a lot, and I didn't want to call them both assistant head coaches, right? So associate head coach name was out there. I was able to use that, but and so some teams have both of those, and so Kevin's role changes none on the offensive side of the football. He's still going to do what he has been doing for the past 2 years. Just wanted to recognize him for the job that he's done to help me with everything. And so I couldn't do my job without Kevin. And so I really value him and wanted to make sure that I recognized him, and we recognized him for the job that he's done these past 2 seasons and moving forward.
Obviously, the Jalen Hurts
To just make us parched on purpose.
I'm okay, Bob.
obviously the
Hey, with Jalen signed long-term, how much time?
Steal. Go ahead, Bo. Come on.
With Jalen signed long-term, how much time do you spend thinking through whether it's schematic or coaching or personnel changes, how you make sure that he stays healthy?
Yeah, I wasn't here's what I definitely wasn't doing. Jalen's on a rookie contract. I'm just going to be reckless and do whatever we want with him. And so, we were very careful. I know, and, he got injured. He's gotten injured. But we didn't pay him more to do less. I'll say that, right? Will we still think about how to protect him? Yeah, because that's our job, to protect our quarterback. But Jalen does a lot of things really well, and we want to utilize the skills that he has so he can continue to play at a high level. And so, to me, we'll continue to go about our business the same way we went about our business. We'll always think about protecting him first, but we didn't pay him more to do less.
along those lines, it's obviously though a massive. No, this is my turn. It's obviously a massive investment for organization. How do both of you view your roles in protecting that investment and then maximizing it?
Yeah.
You and Jalen, or me and you?
Not me and you. You want to go first?
No, he asked you.
No, he said, how do you and him, you and I?
So both of us.
No, you go.
Yeah, we just got to continue to do a good job of developing it as Howie. I'll just answer it for both of us. Howie's going to say we're going to bring in guys to help Jalen do his job better, and I'm going to say the guys that Howie brings in, I'm going to do my best, and our coaching staff's going to do our best to maximize their potential as far as how we develop them fundamentally and as a football player, and putting them in the positions to be able to make plays. Go ahead.
Starts with a good pass.
And then my job is to, where was I on that? That's our job, is to do that. And like I said to Bo, we're going to continue to do things. We'll have new wrinkles next year, obviously. We're going to figure out ways to do the things that we've done better, how we can coach them better, how we can get our guys in position to make the plays better. And we'll grow on the scheme that we've had and to maximize Jalen's ability. But make no mistake about it, that's our job, right, to do those things. The reason Jalen's in this position where he's signed this, big contract is the fact that I've said this a million times. Nobody knows what Jalen Hurts' ceiling is. Why? Because he loves football, right? He's tough. He has high football IQ, right? And so the guys that have those things, and he's competitive, right? The guys that have those things tend to reach their ceiling. So he's just going to continue to rise, and so he's a big part of this too, because he's no man suddenly becomes different than his cherished thoughts and habits. He's going to continue to do the things he's done, to this date, because that's who he is, right? And so we all obviously have a part of it.
Did you get on me, Dave?
Did he answer your part well enough?
I just said you're going to bring in guys.
Okay.
How you been a part of
Zach.
several franchises?
That's 2 questions. Go. You have 2. Zach's ass is done.
Pre-draft press conference run by Nick Sirianni.
That's the system. Snaps played among rookies. How does that factor into the way you look at the draft in terms of a player contributing in your one?
Yeah, it was a unique situation. Every year is different, and so I don't think to myself, well, the success that we had last year, says that you can't get the contributions from rookies, right? It just was a unique situation where, our number 2, or really our first, second, and third picks were behind veterans, right? With Cam being behind Jason and Nakobe being behind Kaiser and TJ, and Jordan, rotating reps. So I just think that was a unique year. What I think is cool about that is that, how you said this, like we're getting almost 2 draft classes this year, right? With those guys that didn't play, they played on special teams and contributed, but now they're coming in and ready to step in and make plays. I'm excited about that you're almost combining 2 years worth of guys, that we're going to count on this year.
The other thing is, I think it was unique, and we don't take it for granted, the health of our team last year. That was a unique situation. And so I think for us to expect the same results as last year would be naive at a minimum. And so we got to prepare to understand that for the amount of games that we want to play, it is a long season. And we need depth. We need guys who can play at a high level, a lot of positions. And when we drafted those guys last year, we certainly didn't feel like those 3 guys wouldn't have an opportunity to get on the field, just because the history of all those positions is we've needed guys. And so I think when we look at last year, instead of thinking about it as a trend, we got to look at it like we got to ensure that we have enough players that are able to play at a high level to get us where we want to, playing the kind of football we want to play in December, January, and hopefully February.
You've been a part of several franchise quarterback deals since you've been with the Eagles. How have they informed you in terms of looking at Jalen's mental makeup and how he will be able to handle a significant amount of pay, being the face of the franchise, and doing all the necessary things that need to be done when you were in that role?
Yeah, I don't want to get in the comparison game because I don't think that's fair. What I would say in terms of Jalen, the one thing you know about with Jalen is that the money is not going to change him. The money's not going to affect him. My first conversation with him after he signed that contract, he was just telling me how determined he was, and I know how hard he's working in the off season. I know how much football matters to him. I know how much improving at football matters to him. I know how much he wants to be coached. I know, how important it is to try to deliver a championship to the city. Obviously all of us disappointed we fell short this year. And so I don't have any doubt in my mind that giving Jalen this contract will not change the person that Jalen is. No doubt.
Talked in the past about how, can I just follow up on that? You talked in the past about how part of your evaluation, part of your player evaluation is how a kid will handle a lot of money in his pocket.
For sure.
How does that inform something like this? I mean, is that even a conversation, or with him, do you just kind of?
Yeah, it's the conversation. It goes like this: it's not going to affect Jalen, but we do discuss it. Yeah. We do discuss it, but it's like we have no doubt.
I mean, we've been with the guy for 3 years, and you go about his daily habits and everything like that. It's just you know the guy.
Right. Now, of course, he'll probably come in a Ferrari on Monday. He'll drive it. Oh boy, yeah, you probably should. Jalen, if you're listening to this, run it.
Howard, in the pre-draft process, how important to you is the process of trying to figure out what other teams are going to do?
You know, I would say this. Nobody has any idea what we're going to do. I know that. And so for me to think that there's actually people in this league talking to people and saying, hey, I'm going to draft this guy at 10, but don't tell anyone, you know, like this is a huge game of poker, right? And all you want to affect is the outcome of your desired results. So, you know, am I going to give you guys any answers today? No, not even a little bit. But I think the reality of it is anyone who's sitting there and saying, hey, I know exactly what's going to happen at pick 11 or pick 12 or pick 6 or 20, it's all a guess. And I promise you, when we come here next Thursday night, late, and Nick walks in and says, you know, something like fire up, or he yells at all you guys, like, you know, he yells at me sometimes, in a positive way. You guys will have probably 5 or 6 times when the commissioner announces a pick, go, whoa. Because at the end of the day, everyone sees things differently. Just like everyone sees people differently, like everyone sees food differently. The things that we're seeing that we think are so clear and so transparent to another team are totally opposite. And that's what makes the draft kind of fun. You know, like you see things and you go there and you go, there's no way that everyone's not going to see the first 10 picks exactly how we see them. And there will be a difference of opinion. And that's what's really interesting and unique about the draft process.
Is how much time do you then spend, if it's the poker game, of seeding out things that you know to not be true?
How much do I? That was a lot of double negatives, Bo. Well, how many? Tell me. Translate that question.
Are you spreading misinformation purposely?
Did he go to UConn?
Did you go to UConn? No, my sister's a coach in the hockey team. Oh, okay.
Say hockey underneath it. I don't know if you were repping the basketball team. Okay.
I will be honest with you. I never talk about our team. So, you know, for me, I'm very consistent about that. Like, I won't talk to other teams about our team. I won't talk to anyone about our team. When I go to my kids' sporting events, how are we going to draft? You know, like maybe I should start saying stuff there, but I don't. And I think at the end of the day, I say the same thing. You know, there's a very small group of people who kind of can figure out what directions that we're thinking about now, depending on where it's going. And I say the same things I say to my kids. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's be good listeners the next couple weeks.
Howie, what's your big picture? Howie, what's your big picture?
Yeah, let's finish. Let's hit numbers like we're at the deli counter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can I go first?
It's the first question.
All right. Yeah.
Patient.
So along those lines, sort of what you're just talking about, how do you view the overall depth of this draft, maybe relative to previous drafts, and also how many players have first-round grades, would you say, in your evaluation?
Well, since we have 2 first-round picks, I'm not going to tell you how many guys have first-round grades. I'd say this. I never get caught up, and maybe I should. Maybe I'll look at this after the draft. I never get caught up in trying to compare the quality of this draft versus a previous draft, because I think we got to be in the moment we're in right now. And to sit there and go, man, you know, this draft doesn't have this, or this draft, I wish it had that, it doesn't help us make good decisions for next weekend. And so I'm really focused on what are the opportunities that we have over the next weekend to improve our team, to get players that we think fit and that we think can be a part of the culture and the team that we're trying to build over a period of time. So I'm not saying there's a cop-out, but I'm being honest. Like, I think if you go back and you say, hey, this is worse and this, it just gives you excuses there, when at the end of the day, we know there are going to be tremendous players who come out of this draft. And we got to find those guys. We got to bring them to Philadelphia, and that's our challenge, and that's our job, and that's what we're going to try to do the best we can to do over the next week. Mm-hmm.
Something you said on Kelsey's podcast, when you said with the presence of Stoutland, you focus more on traits than technique with offensive line, because you think you can coach them up. I'm paraphrasing here.
Definitely. definitely paraphrasing. I definitely didn't say it that way. Definitely.
Well, so then I'll let you clarify. Right? Is that A, unique to offensive line, and B, what critical factors do you look for then?
Yeah. I think the thing that we tried to do is we tried to find guys who have unique traits that can make a difference in the game. And I think when you look at the best players on our team, they all have a unique skill set. They all have tools in their body that allow them to compete at the highest level and to play at Pro Bowl, All-Pro level to change games. And so I think what you try to balance in this is you obviously you want to evaluate the tape and you want the tape to be really good, but you want guys who have tools in their body to develop into elite players. And so when those things don't match, you got to go back a little bit and figure out the reason why. And so when I say that about offensive linemen, when you look at our offensive line and you go left to right and you go, Jordan and you go Landon and you go Kels and you go Cam and you go Lane, and obviously we got other offensive linemen. Those are guys we've drafted higher who have made the Pro Bowl. All those guys have unique physical traits, like really unique physical traits. And they also combine that with incredible character, love of the game, passion for the game, and coachability. But that's what I meant when I said that. Like, I know that at the end of the day, some of these offensive linemen are so much better than some of these college players that they don't have to be technically sound. And we have phenomenal coaches on the staff. Certainly Stout is one of them. And when you give our coaches guys with high football character, with unique physical traits, they will be developed. And this is one of the things that I tell every player who's been in this building. If you expect a 21, 22 in this draft, 23, 24, 25, which is unique to this draft, year-olds to come in and day one be finished products, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. We have to rally around these players. We have an unbelievable player development program. We have unbelievable coaches. We have unbelievable staff in this building. We have to rally around each and every player. We will have a plan for each and every player to get them to be better. If we just go, hey, you're in Philadelphia, now it's on you, we're going to be disappointed. And so that we have to take responsibility in making these players better.
What does the new receiver affect Quez Watkins?
We got first question. Go.
To kind of follow up on that, considering how close you were this past season, and aside from Jalen, how some of your core on both sides of the ball, the window could be getting a little bit smaller, how tempting does that make that next week to take a player who may be more ready to help you right now rather than somebody who has a higher ceiling?
Yeah, I'd look at it a little differently, and maybe this is wrong, but I'd look at our roster right now, and I'd say, there isn't a spot that we have to have next week, and that doesn't mean that we can't get better, because we can definitely get better, and our goal is to continue to improve our football team, and that's not going to end next weekend. That's not going to end. I say this all the time, till the trade deadline, and till even after that, you have some cuts. So roster building is a year-round job for us, and so this is a big part of it. But I look at it like, we got to ensure that we're getting the right players and that we're not forcing anything. And the mistakes are made when you force and you try to make something out of nothing. And we have barometers in place, I think, with the conversations that we have, where we really try to test each other and try to play devil's advocate and make sure that we're not doing something just because we want to make something into something that maybe is not there.
How would wide receiver acquisition affect Quez Watkins?
How does it affect him?
He's a slot.
Yeah, we just added depth to the group. Quez, I got a lot of confidence in Quez, and I know he's gonna come back. I know he's hungry. He's determined. He feels like he didn't have his best season. Now, he didn't get the opportunities. We've talked about this. He didn't get the opportunities that he had in the past. And so it's just taking advantage of the opportunities that he has. But, Quez is our number 3 receiver. There'll be competition for, just like there was when Zach was here, for different roles within that. But he, we're excited about Quez. I'm really excited with our new addition.
Pronounce his name.
I can't. Yeah. All right.
Hey,
and as
but
I talk to him more,
Can I add something that you've said to me, and I'm just going to say your words because I think they're important. I mean, you spend a tremendous amount of time trying to improve the offense, which I appreciate, and looking at tape. And you've come into me multiple times and talk about Nobody's down on Quez Watkins in this building. I mean, we're excited about him and the skill set that he has. And I'm not saying this, to be combative in any way, Jeff, but at the end of the day, like, he's also played outside. Like, this, a lot of the guys that we have, and you've talked about this with our staff when we're talking about it, like, guys can multi-align, so guys can play inside and out, and I think that's one of the benefits of the group that we have.
We gotta knock a couple more.
How would you say your approach to the draft, your preparation of the draft has changed over the years you've been GM? And is there any one kind of thing you've learned along the way that informs the way you do this?
Yeah, I definitely think that along the way that my process has changed. Hopefully, I think for the better, but certainly the results will determine that. And I think really the big part of it is including every part of the information. And I think that my biggest mistakes have been when you're kind of stubborn about something that you see and not looking at. You got to look at, why will this fail? Why won't this work? As opposed to all the, we want to be glass half full evaluators here, but you got to also look at like what is right in front of you that says this may not work out. And how do you do that? Well, obviously you got the subjective stuff, which is, watching the tape and grading the player. You have the objective stuff, which is the testing. You have the psychological stuff, which is a big part. And we got a great group here, a tremendous group of people who help with that. And then you got really the team building, the resource allocation part of it. And so I think one of the things I'm very fortunate is I get to hear all that information, and obviously the coaches are part of the subjective stuff, so I'm not including them on that, and how they're used. So when you put those factors together, it really it helps you make better decisions. Again, we're talking about 21, 22. There are going to be mistakes. We know the rates on that. But we're just trying to make as good a decisions as we possibly can, and sometimes it pays to take chances. Whether it's incredible tools in their body to become elite players, but sometimes it's also okay. I've had this new, out of respect for the Phillies, go Phillies, is like you can score a lot of runs when you hit a lot of doubles, and my kids are all playing baseball, so I must be in a little baseball moment right there. But so I think that's okay. Like you don't always have to swing for the fences. And I think if you keep hitting doubles, you keep rounding the bases, you keep scoring runs, you keep building a really good football team.
Hey, Howie,
Last
when it
two
comes
guys.
to the end of the draft, when you're in the back end of the first round, that fifth-year option, how does it affect it from a value standpoint versus those, top few picks in the second round?
Well, I think the fifth-year option, obviously, it buys you a year. And I think when you're talking about really good players and you're talking about trying to keep your team together, it gives you an opportunity to have an extra year of contract value. I think that's incredibly important as you look at it, and it's valued. And I think those are decisions that you make about whether you want to come back into the first round and get a fifth year on a guy, or, what the value you're getting to come out of the first round.
Because of, COVID rules of transfer. How does that factor into the way you look at players as far as their college production and their age curve in the NFL?
Yeah, I think you're a product of your experience, and I think certainly I've had experience with older players, and you have to kind of balance the fact that when you're 23, 24, you're more physically developed than you are when you're 18 or 19. And so when you're playing guys that are 4 or 5 years older at that time in their life, I mean, you're talking about, probably 20% increase in strength and power. And so you're not necessarily judging the same level of competition. And so you got to take that into account when you're drafting guys, and understand, what is the ceiling of these guys. And, our performance staff does a tremendous job of talking about where guys can get and where we think we can take guys. But it's definitely a factor.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.